Making great progress on the cuirass. Now, it is not quite holding shape. Foam, you can heat it, you can bend it, it'll never quite hold the shape you want it to. So what I do to help with that, you can see I've marked out where I'm going to put straps on the inside of the shoulders, like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bend it a little bit farther than I want it bent, then put these straps in place. That's going to help it hold its shape, because when you bend the foam, basically you're compressing the inside, expanding the outside, and so when you glue this on top of it, you're holding it in that compressed state where it'll hold its curve better. I'm going to do the same thing for these curved pieces because I want them to meet at my ribs, and I could heat it and I could bend it and it'd be better, but it's never going to be exactly what I want. So I'm going to strap those as well on each side to get that shape. Just straps, contact cement, don't have to be very big, just you want it to be the length of your curve. My cuirass has a much better shape to it now that I've glued the piece on the inside. You can see how I've done that. You just hold the curve in place, glue it in, and it matches up a lot better. Not quite perfect, but still much better. I'll do some strapping from front to back to mate these sides. Some kind of strap, I'll just Velcro so I get those close. My little ribs for the fronts, this is how I cut them. I did use the bandsaw to kind of cut the back, make it a little flatter. That looks a little bit better because you still kind of saw the seam in the back. It just had a weird shape. This looks a little more natural. And then I did one step better, and I took it to the belt sander and just rounded off the edges. Gives it more of kind of an organic look. I think it's going to look a lot better as you see those. I mean, this is just, it's too many flat edges. It just looks like something that was cut out. And that's not what you want. You don't want any of these pieces of the costume to look like they were cut out. This looks a lot better. It looks like something that's kind of shaped, a little organic. It's rounded over. And I like that my sanding is not completely perfect because it has, the shape varies from one to the other. So it looks like it's more natural. So I like that. I think I'm on the right path. I wasn't sure. I was thinking, do I need to redo these? Like, how can I fix this? And the answer was the belt sander. The answer is oftentimes the belt sander. They are not all uniform, but they all look similar, and I like that. So I've done half of them, need to do the other half, smooth them over, and then see about attaching them to the cuirass. Because my little round pieces I created, they're a little bit wider than the ribs, and I think what I'll do is when I glue them, I'll just kind of squeeze them together to get them to fit better, and do it that way. I mean, they were cut to match the cuirass and the curved parts of cuirass, but I don't want them wide in the ribs. That just looks weird, because what I eventually do is I'll glue it to the ribs, and then I'll round this over so it all looks like kind of one piece growing out of the body, which is what I want. And I'm just going to have to belt sand it to get there, and luckily the belt sander will do exactly that. Working on the shoulder pauldrons. Cut my template. It's a lot of looking at reference photos, sketching, looking at reference photos again, back and forth until you finally get something that looks right. I mean, because it looks small in my hand. When I put this paper template on the cuirass, it looks right, so I'm going to go with it because I have no time to waste here. I'm working on all my little ribs. So I glued the rib to the little spacer. It's a bit of a rough cut. I have put it on the belt sander, smooth it up just where it looks like these are one piece, not two pieces glued together, because I don't want them looking like, if they look like two separate pieces, just is not a good looking job. So I've put those in the belt sander, round that off to where it looks like one unit, because you're really not going to see it. A lot of it's just right in here where you won't see, but still details matter. And so I'm going to smooth all that up. Here are all my pauldrons. I split that just because it's such a sharp peak. I went ahead and split it, so I'll glue that together at an angle. This shoulder pauldron curves around. I've cut the reliefs in the back because the front and back, they just got two little spots where they kind of fold in. And eventually I'll heat it and curve it to the shoulder, and I'll probably glue it to the cuirass just so that it's in place. I don't like to have a lot of stuff I have to put on or take off. I like it as enclosed and as compact as possible. So all these little pieces I will glue to the cuirass probably before I paint. Just makes it easier that way. And that way I can just put the whole thing on and it's done and set. Like stuff like the cape on one shoulder and the little sleeve, that I can't put on before I paint because I'd paint all over it. But I may Velcro it, may figure out some other method. But little by little, man, stuff is coming together. I thought I was going to start on the sword and not quite there. I don't know, I want to do the sword. I want a weapon because it just looks cool, but what good is a sword if I don't have any gauntlets? I'm just holding this thing in my bare hands. I need the gauntlets. Those things are massive and beastly, so I need those too. So, lots to do, but inch by inch, we're getting there. Gluing a lot of things right now. So I'm wearing the mask, gotta stay safe. But I'm ready to glue my spikes onto the cuirass. And I was thinking about what's the best way to approach that, and I think I just start at the top and work my way down, because the top ones go straight and they curve as the curious curve. So I think if I start the straight ones, those can be my reference lines, and I just put each successive one, kind of curve it to that, and really I'm just going to eyeball it. There's no science to it. But I have applied the contact cements. It's just a matter of gluing them to the cuirass, and I hope it looks awesome. I will need to reshape them because some of them are a little flat. They need to kind of curve, and there's some work to be done. But I hope that is the next big leap in this cuirass, because like I built it, it's kind of plain. You know, you add some detail to it, it looks better, but still, it's not quite there. Not like the helmet, which just looks. I mean, those spikes just transformed it. It looks. I'm looking at it. It's right over there. It looks awesome. So I'm hoping to get this cuirass to the same level. I've been working on the pauldrons. I'm working on. I don't know if I'm going to do the gauntlets or sword next. I want to do both of them next. Obviously, that's impossible to do two things at one time, at least for me. I don't quite love them. I don't know. I had a hard time getting them shaped right. It just, I still don't know, because they look a little bit more like spikes than they do ribs. I don't know if I need to cut the tips off of these spikes and round them a little bit more. I'll probably consult reference photos, because I don't love it. And maybe if I get these things shaped, I like it better. Maybe paint and weathering. I don't know. But right now, I don't love it. And that's one of the things I've learned, that if I don't like something and I can't figure out why, which makes it even more difficult, you know, just keep messing with it. You know, take it one step at a time. So if I don't like it, it's not going to get better. Now, maybe with this, maybe paint well, but I'm going to look at these, maybe making, you know, they kind of have like the arrowhead shape. Maybe I take the ridges off, round it down a little bit more. Maybe I cut the tip off, round it a little more. I'm going to look at that. For now, I'm going to move on with pauldrons and swords and everything else. And so maybe just giving it a little bit more shape, giving it some curvature might help. I don't know. Right now I'm just like, this looks bad. We'll see. It's getting late. I wanted to quit, but I thought, you know, let me just do one more thing before I stop. Do something for myself tomorrow, because that way I'll know where I'm going. You know, if I just get to a stop point and I'm done tonight, then tomorrow I got to figure out my orientation. I'm in a mode, so I just kept going. So I started this gauntlet, and it's one of those things where Eredin's arms, I think if you translate his video game proportions to me, my hands would be the size of hams or something. I mean, just his hands are massively large compared to the rest of his body. Unfortunately, my hands cannot get any bigger than they are. They are what they are. So I just started building this gauntlet. It's one of these things, just start building. Like right now, I'm just concerned about the overall length. I know it's got to go from my wrist to my elbow. And so while it doesn't look as huge as Eredin, I don't know if I can pull that off. But I got the length right. I just started, I know there's 4 segments, and the one at the wrist is kind of short. And I built it out. And at first, my third length was all the way to my elbow. I need 4 lengths in here, 4 sections. So I spaced them down. So I think it's good. I may want it a little bit longer, but then again, like it kind of hits right at my elbow. I might could do a little cutout here, gain a little more space, but also Eredin has a little elbow guard that comes off here. And so that attached elbow guard right here, it really is the perfect length. So while I want it longer to try and match the proportions of Eredin, it's getting too big for my arm. Now I think I do want to flare it a little bit more, just so it flares out a little bit more at my elbow to give the illusion, the effect that Eredin's gauntlet has. I still need the hand portion. I haven't quite figured that out. That I'm debating on whether I go some styrene plastic. Craft foam is a bit too thin. The floor mats, they're a bit too thick, but with these gauntlets, I would slice that down on the bandsole of it to get a little bit thinner. The glow up part, I don't know yet. Right now I'm just trying to get proportions. Next, I'm going to start cutting out of paper the fins. Here's these fins that go down the arm. Just get an idea of kind of what proportion, scale I want for that. There are spikes. I will be doing that out of the foam floor mats, and I think I'm just trying to cut it with a razor blade the best I can, because it's that pyramid shaped spike. Put it on the bandsaw or put it on the belt sander if I need to try to flatten it out. I don't know. I feel like I've done spikes in some iteration before. They were not enjoyable. They were not fun. But I may try it again. I mean, I guess I could always just maybe glue some double layer floor mats together and try to angle cut it either on the bandsaw or with a razor blade. You know, on the bandsaw you need to make it a little bit bigger so you have something to hold as you run it through. But this gauntlet, I mean, this is getting somewhere. Working on the gauntlets today. I started in paper. Always start in paper. And I said, I need to be sure to add some thickness for the foam. I did not. So I had to add this strip right here to account for the thickness. And this thing, it's a little snug getting my hand into it. Once it's on my arm, like I like the proportions, I like the way it looks. Like it looks massive as it should. And so the question is, if I can get it off, you know, do I cut this bottom one apart and thin this? Because you see this one's a little bit thinner. This one, I wish I thinned a little bit more. I think I'm gonna leave it for now because the hardest part will be getting this base one over my wrist. That's the tightest. It flares out from here. So I think it's okay. It's not super tight. I mean, I'd rather it be a little snug than not. I wish it was a little looser. I have thinned this one down just to try to ease that transition. I think it'll work. I wish I just accounted for the thickness of the foam to begin with. I told myself to do that before I started cutting, and of course, I didn't. I think it'll be alright. I think it's looking good. Like, I love this. I mean, it just looks massive. I mean, Eredin has these massive arms, these massive hands. The gauntlet is going to be like equally kind of as big. Right now I have some gardening gloves. They're black. It works. I mean, I don't think you're going to see the gloves very much. They are this. You know, they got like that nylon coating. Don't love the nylon coating, but I was looking for some cheap gloves that are black. And not a lot are black or gray. And I don't want, you know, big leather gloves would look cool, but man, that would get hot really quick. So the plan is to just permanently affix the gauntlet to these things. So I glue the inside of this glove to the inside of the gauntlet, and then all the segmented finger parts would just permanently attach to that. I don't know if I like strap around it or I just glue on top. Gluing on top will probably be fine. And you know, these fingers, I mean, it's going to make my hand look big because it's going to be thickness. So there'll be thickness out of each finger, so it's going to look big, and that's good. So I think this is it. I may just cut this thing right here at the wrist. I haven't figured that out yet, but it'll somehow glue to the inside of this because I just want it one big thing. I don't want it separate. And because I think I'd have to glue the glove to the gauntlet, because if I don't, I think if the glove part of the gauntlet is glued to the rest of the gauntlets, and this actual glove is not, I think I'm trying to put my hand in there, you know, unless maybe I just cut it. I don't know. That's something to think about. Once this is all together, then we'll figure it out. That's where I did start putting the sword together because I wanted to see the scale of this sword. This is 4 foot 6 inches, and it came out really well. Like, I love the handguard. I know there's a technical term for that. I don't know it yet. I always feel like it should be a little bit longer. Too late now. I've already cut it. I'm not doing that again. But yeah, it looks really good. It's a two-hander. The scale really came out well. Now I'm hoping, my plan is to heat this PVC up and just flatten it, get kind of a 2x4, flatten it down because it'd be very wide for a blade. It should. I don't know. I can't remember if I ever heated PVC. It should heat. It should flatten. And then the blade itself will just be foam the whole way down. I wanted PVC in there because foam would be way too floppy. This has some stiffness. Now, if I flatten this down, I'm going to lose some stiffness out of it. So I'm not going to make it perfectly flat. Just a little bit thinner. And if I can't flatten it down, you know, I can just work around that. It'll be a very oval-shaped blade, and that's okay because nobody's going to look at it very close. It's just going to be the overall effect. When you see this thing, it'll be cool. So I would like to flatten it out some. We'll see how well that works. I guess what I could have done is done I think this is 3/4 inch PVC, done 3/4 inch PVC handle up to here, and then gone 1/2 inch, because that would be thinner and still offer the rigidity, but didn't do that. The gauntlets are looking more and more like a thing. I mean, I like kind of the size, the fitment. I did just realize that there's kind of some bends in Eredin's gauntlets, since each segment is not glued together, but each segment is glued to itself. I've got all the seams. You see I've had to put some spacer in a couple of them. It seems like I always have to do the gauntlets. I never quite get that allowance for the foam thickness right. This last one, I mean, you look at that, it looks huge. I'm thinking maybe I can try to pinch it, because I'd love for that to be a smaller gap. You know, maybe pinch it something like that. I mean, it's still big, but not just, I mean, that's crazy big. So my spikes, I wasn't really sure what to do. I did a test. I glued 2 pieces of foam together. This is 1 inch wide, like 2.5 inches long. And I did it on the bandsaw. I mean, you could do this with a hobby blade. It'd be a little more difficult. But that is a spike. Look at that. That came out really well. I'm very pleased with that. I didn't do a peak to the top. I did it a little flat just because this foam, when you get so thin, it doesn't do well. So I left a little bit of thickness, but that's going to look really good on these gauntlets. There's 2 on each side, and there's 4 on the glove part of it. But I mean, look at that. That's going to make these things look a lot meaner. Because they look a little plain. They need some meanness. And I don't know if I can put the ridges in here like they are. Also, I've got the little ridges that go on each gauntlet. I mean, you know what? Once I add these details, these things are really going to look good. So I need to cut a bunch of these. I've cut the one. I just want to see if my theory of how it could work would work, and it did work. Came out great. So I've glued up 3 more that I need to cut, and then I got to do 8 after that. Because there's 12 total between the gauntlets. No, there's 12 for each. 2, 4, 6. I think it's 10 each gauntlet. Wow. I'll double check that, but that is a lot of little spikes to cut. So I gotta get cracking. The way I'm doing these spikes is I'm just gluing 2 pieces of foam together, 1 inch wide, 2.5 inches tall. And what I'm doing to get this nice spike is I'm using a razor blade to mark the peak. I'm doing the peak about 1/8 inch wide, just because if you get it a perfect point, it's just foam, it's gonna break off. So you need a little bit of thickness there. And so then I'm tracing from this peak I've marked down to each corner, and I just trace it very lightly with the razor blade, just to have a very clean line, because you're not going to get a better line than a razor blade. It is super sharp, super crisp. And then I just saw each side on the bandsaw to keep my fingers away from the blade of the bandsaw. And again, you could do this with a razor blade. It's a little bit trickier, but I'm using these to hold it and control it and keep my fingers away. And also the foam wants to twist, especially with the larger pieces, wants to twist or fold or bend. This helps keeps it straight. So then when I get the one side cut, I do the same marking on this side. You probably can't see that in the foam at this distance, and I do the same thing, run it through, and I get a spike that looks like that. That is a very nice triangular shape. I've always had difficulty getting triangular shapes in foam, and this works really well, so I'm going to have to remember this for future builds, because this comes out really good.